Puma Punku, high in the Bolivian Andes. The freezing mountain air is incredibly thin. For decades, ambitious researchers have wandered these desolate, wind-swept highland plains. They arrived expecting to find primitive ruins. They looked for crude copper tools, simple stone walls, and basic primitive shelters. What they actually uncovered buried beneath the cold earth defied all modern logic. It completely shattered every accepted timeline of ancient human engineering. The terrifying discovery left the world's most brilliant archaeological minds entirely speechless. What exactly lies buried there? The answers are more fascinating, and perhaps more unsettling, than anyone could have guessed. If you're as captivated by history, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Echo Mysteries. Your support is the heartbeat of this channel. It gives us the strength to keep pushing forward, digging deeper into ancient mysteries and hidden archaeology. Drop a comment, and tell me, what do you think they found at Puma Punku? Let's unravel the secrets of the past. Together. The freezing winds sweeping across the Altiplano Plateau carry whispers of a forgotten empire. Here lies Puma Punku. It is a sprawling ruin complex that once belonged to the mighty Tiwanaku civilization. It sits at an altitude of nearly 13.00 feet. The air is thin, the landscape is barren, yet out of this harsh earth rise massive stone structures that defy human comprehension. For decades, archaeologists have documented these massive megaliths. They lay scattered across the dirt like the discarded puzzle pieces of ancient giants. But it is not their weight that stops experts in their tracks. It is their flawless, perfect geometry. The site is entirely littered with H-blocks. These are intricate, monolithic stone pieces carved with terrifying precision. They feature absolutely perfect right angles. They have deeply recessed grooves that run perfectly straight. They possess inner corners so sharply defined that no erosion could ever create them. When these blocks were originally assembled, they interlocked seamlessly without a single drop of mortar. Professor Jean-Pierre Propson, a renowned architectural historian from UC Berkeley, spent years analyzing this site. His extensive 1997 studies on the near-isodomic masonry confirmed something deeply unsettling. The blocks were heavily standardized. They were essentially mass-produced with such uniform exactness that they could be swapped out and interchanged at will. It is a level of prefabricated engineering we strictly associate with modern industrial assembly lines. Yet this flawless construction was achieved thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution. But here is where the story deepens. You have to look incredibly closely at what these perfectly cut blocks are actually made of. They are not soft sandstone. They are not easily carved limestone. The master builders of Tiwanaku deliberately chose andesite and massive slabs of diorite. According to established geological data, these specific volcanic rocks are incredibly unforgiving. They rank consistently between a 6 and a 7 on the universal Mohs scale of hardness. To put that technical reality into perspective, diorite is violently hard. It is notoriously difficult to penetrate or shape. Modern contractors require heavy machinery and diamond-tipped circular saws just to slice through it cleanly. You have to wonder how anyone could carve a perfect, razor-sharp right-angled trench into one of the hardest stones. The standard historical narrative insists that the Tiwanaku people somehow achieved this miracle using primitive stone pounders. They supposedly used raw, repetitive brute force. They supposedly used nothing but crude, rudimentary chisels made of soft copper. But does that accepted explanation actually make any logical sense? Copper sits at a mere 3 on the Mohs scale. Striking a slab of solid diorite with a primitive copper chisel is a mathematical joke. It is exactly like trying to cut through a solid steel bank vault using a stick of warm butter. It is an absolute physical impossibility. The copper metal would simply fold, dull, and completely shatter upon the first impact. The ancient stone would remain completely unscarred. The perfectly smooth, laser-like cuts tell a very different story. The ancient artisans of the Bolivian Altiplano did not use copper. They were wielding an unknown technology that has been deliberately or tragically erased from the human archaeological record. Picture the bustling, high-altitude streets of modern La Paz. In a small, dust-choked workshop, a 45-year-old stone artisan named Carlos stands over a massive block of raw diorite. He has spent over 20 grueling years mastering this craft. Today, he is not working with primitive hand tools. He is armed with heavy-duty industrial grinders and diamond-coated saws that scream as they violently bite into the rock. Even with this immense mechanical advantage, the progress is painfully slow. Cutting a single, perfectly straight, sharply angled groove takes him several exhausting hours. Sparks fly continuously across the room, while the sheer friction threatens to warp his modern steel blades. He knows how fiercely this volcanic stone fights back. Now, historians want Carlos, and the rest of the world, to believe a very specific, widely accepted narrative. They confidently claim the ancient builders of Tiwanaku achieved infinitely superior geometric cuts using completely basic methods. They say it was done with nothing but raw copper chisels and simple stone pounders. We must look closely at the brutal reality of material science because the numbers simply do not lie. As established earlier, andesite and diorite sit proudly at a solid 6 to 7 on the universal Mohs hardness scale. Copper and early bronze max out at a pathetic 3 or maybe 4. These were the only metals officially available to the Tiwanaku culture then. The gap in atomic density is not just a minor, negligible inconvenience, it is an absolute, insurmountable physical barrier. You can easily run this brutal reality check yourself. Hold a piece of pure, ancient-style copper in one hand, and place a rough slab of andesite firmly on the ground. Grip a heavy hammer tightly in your other hand. Now, bring that hammer down on the copper chisel with all your strength, aiming at the hard stone surface. The result is humiliating. The soft copper tip instantly folds over itself, compressing like a crushed can. The stone remains intact. It sits there completely unbothered, without a single microscopic scratch to show for your intense physical effort. This structural failure is not just a casual observation made by internet amateurs. It is a highly documented, incredibly frustrating academic dead end. In 1997, Professor Jean-Pierre Protzen from UC Berkeley decided to physically test this orthodox theory. He traveled deep into South America, spending grueling months personally pounding, scraping, and grinding massive andesite boulders. He utilized the exact primitive tools that mainstream archaeologists claim were used by the ancients. He battered his hands and exhausted his physical strength in a desperate attempt to recreate the ancient architectural magic. He managed to crudely flake away some rough outer layers of the stone, but he ultimately hit a massive wall of physical impossibility. He formally admitted that forging the razor-sharp, intricate, interlocking geometric grooves of the H-blocks using these soft tools was completely impossible to replicate in reality. The exhaustive, painful experiment proved one absolutely terrifying thing about our past. The accepted archaeological timeline is hiding a massive, gaping hole. The Tiwanaku artisans were not foolishly tapping away with soft metal that simply broke upon impact. They were not spending hundreds of agonizing years rubbing wet sand into tiny grooves just to get a single straight line. Here is where the accepted history completely falls apart. If the tools we have actually found in the dirt cannot possibly do the work, then the real tools must have been something else entirely. They used something infinitely more advanced, wielding a device capable of slicing through solid diorite like warm butter. And whatever that forgotten technology was, it has completely vanished from the human archaeological record. Barabar Caves, India. The transition is violent. We move halfway across the planet from the freezing Bolivian highlands, yet the exact same impossible engineering emerges from the earth. These ancient subterranean chambers are carved directly into a massive ridge of solid granite. Mainstream historians offer a simple explanation. They claim these were commissioned as basic ascetic retreats for ancient monks. Imagine standing there, You step through the heavy, unassuming stone entrance. You enter a pitch-black interior. You ignite a simple wooden torch to see the walls. The sudden burst of light does not reveal rough, primitive chisel marks. It reveals a breathtaking, impossible mirror. The entire interior surface of the cavern is polished to absolute optical perfection. The curved, vaulted ceiling reflects flickering flames. It possesses the glassy clarity of a modern telescope lens. Every single inch of the stone has been smoothed down. It is refined to a microscopic level of precision. The walls are not just smooth, they are highly reflective. The acoustic properties alone defy basic logic. A single footstep echoes flawlessly across the symmetrical space. This level of finishing requires something terrifying. It demands an incomprehensible amount of sustained, directed friction. Granite is an intensely dense, igneous rock. It is aggressively unforgiving. It sits right alongside the diorite of the Andes. Modern fabricators face immense struggles with this material today. They must use diamond-impregnated polishing pads. These pads must spin at thousands of revolutions per minute to achieve this exact glass-like surface. They rely heavily on massive industrial machinery. They need continuous water cooling systems to prevent heat fracturing. Yet the mainstream historical record insists otherwise. It claims these ancient builders achieved optical perfection entirely by hand. They supposedly spent multiple generations rubbing the granite. They supposedly used nothing but wet sand and softer rocks. They supposedly achieved laser-flat surfaces in absolute pitch darkness using primitive guesswork. The sheer physical stamina required is staggering. Polishing a single square foot of granite to a mirror shine by hand takes weeks. Polishing entire cavernous halls. It enters the realm of physical impossibility. Now listen carefully, because the official narrative fractures here. The raw physical evidence on these walls directly contradicts the primitive tools found in the dirt. We are looking at a localized, high-tech manipulation of stone. The creators of Barabar stripped away thousands of tons. They left behind a surface so flawlessly flat that it distorts zero light. It is the exact same technological fingerprint. Found thousands of miles away in Bolivia, we are seeing two completely disconnected ancient cultures. Yet both are treating the hardest rocks on Earth like soft, pliable clay. The official historical narrative demands blind faith in isolated miracles of patience. The physical stone proves something else entirely. It confirms the existence of a lost global reality. These unknown builders possessed a method of cutting and polishing stone that has been completely wiped from human memory. The mirror walls of Barabar do not reflect a primitive past. They reflect the ghostly remnants of an advanced civilization. Tama Oasis, Saudi Arabia. We leave the darkness of India behind. We step out into a blinding, sun-scorched desert. It feels remarkably similar to the stark, dry deserts of southern Potosi. Standing alone in this empty wasteland is something. It is a massive sandstone formation known as Al-Nazalar. From a distance, it looks like a giant boulder. But as you walk closer, your brain struggles to comprehend it. The entire megalith is split perfectly down the center. This is not a jagged, uneven crack. It is not caused by a simple structural collapse. The split is flawless, a razor-thin vertical line. It looks exactly like a giant laser beam sliced through the rock. The halves are apart, yet they remain perfectly balanced on two tiny, fragile pedestals. The sheer weight of thousands of tons rests here. By every known law of physics, this structure should have toppled over. It completely defies gravity and mass distribution. But what you are about to hear defies common sense entirely. Mainstream geologists desperately want to provide natural explanations. They refuse to entertain the idea of advanced ancient intervention. Their textbooks state this perfect cut is just natural weathering. They claim the wind blew abrasive sand against the rock for millennia. They suggest a minor tectonic fault line cracked it. They even theorize that ancient freezing cycles snapped the rock. They want us to believe nature created a surgical incision. None of these geological theories hold up to basic scrutiny. Wind erosion is incredibly chaotic and wildly unpredictable. Blowing sand always creates smooth, rounded, sloping curves over time. It absolutely never produces a mathematically straight, vertical slice. A tectonic earthquake would violently shatter those fragile pedestal bases. The shockwaves would destroy the supports long before splitting. The heavy top remains intact while the base crumbles. Freeze-thaw cycles always create jagged, irregular fractures throughout the stone. Those fractures zigzag randomly through the weakest points. They do not leave behind a smooth, uninterrupted, machine-like plane. There is another deeply unsettling detail right on the rock. The surface features ancient petroglyphs of horses and humans. These drawings are placed deliberately near the impossible cut. The people who carved symbols saw the split exactly as is. They revered the megalith as an unnatural, sacred monument. Remember the laser-like precision we saw in the Andes. The exact same signature of impossible cutting stands here. We are not looking at a lucky coincidence of wind. We are looking at the deliberate strike of a forgotten tool. Nanjing, China. We jump to the humid forests. Deep within a quiet mountain lies the Yangshan Quarry. This site completely shatters our understanding of ancient physical ambition. We are no longer talking about standard building blocks. We are talking about entire mountains being surgically sliced apart. Walk into this massive rocky pit. Stand at the bottom and look up. You immediately feel entirely insignificant. Your human scale simply vanishes in an instant. Resting in this massive trench are three colossal, partially finished megaliths. There is the base, the massive body, and the head, but the word monument does not do this justice. The base block alone weighs a staggering 16,000 tons. Let that impossible physical number sink in for a moment. 16,000 tons of solid, unyielding rock. To put that into perspective, consider our current heavy industrial engineering. NASA uses colossal, dual-tread steel crawler transporters just to move a space shuttle to the launch pad. Those massive modern machines would violently struggle with even a fraction of this weight. Yet, historians claim ancient hand labor. They supposedly planned to roll this leviathan away on fragile wooden logs. Look closely at the actual separation channels. Look at the deep negative space where the stone was detached from the living mountain. These cuts are not messy or jagged. They are not the chaotic, uneven result of thousands of desperate men swinging primitive iron picks. The cutting channels are uniform, vast, and terrifyingly precise. They plunge straight down deep into the bedrock. They form perfect, vertical walls of sheer rock. The clearance between the carved megalith and the mountain wall is incredibly tight. It leaves absolutely no physical room for massive teams of laborers to physically swing heavy hammers. It looks as if a colossal, unimaginable energy blade simply dropped from the sky. It looks like it sliced cleanly through the solid mountain like a hot knife through soft wax. The official historical narrative offers a weak explanation. It states that Emperor Yongle commissioned these giant stones. It claims the workers spent months carving these leviathans. Then, they supposedly realized the blocks were too heavy to move. So, they just dropped their tools and walked away. Does that logic actually hold up to reality? Does an empire capable of this level of mathematical precision simply forget to calculate the basic weight? Master ancient engineers do not execute flawless, laser-straight cuts on a 16,000-ton rock without a transportation plan. The physical evidence screams of a sudden, unexpected interruption. They did not slowly abandon this site due to an error. The monumental work was halted abruptly. The precision cutting stopped essentially in midair. The advanced tools used to slice this mountain were never found. We are left staring at an apocalyptic snapshot. It is the frozen aftermath of an advanced industrial operation that simply vanished into thin air. Sacsayhuaman, Peru. We return now to the Andes. We are geographically very close to the Bolivian border. The cultural echoes of Tiwanaku resonate strongly here. However, the engineering approach at this site is violently different. At Puma Punku, we saw the reality of mass production. Sacsayhuaman, however, abandons standardization entirely. It embraces chaos and transforms it into absolute perfection. This is not a wall built with uniform bricks. It is a massive, sprawling fortress constructed from monstrous, irregular polygons. Some of these individual stones weigh over 100 tons, yet they are not rough blocks simply stacked on top of each other. Every single, massive stone is uniquely shaped with multiple complex angles. They interlock with the stones around them like pieces of a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle designed by a mad genius. The joints between these colossal boulders are practically invisible. They are so incredibly tight that you cannot slide a single sheet of modern paper between them. And remember, there is absolutely no mortar holding any of this together. The stones rely entirely on their own immense weight and their impossibly precise friction fit. This specific type of polygonal masonry serves a vital, highly advanced engineering purpose. The interlocking joints act exactly like modern seismic dampeners. When a massive earthquake strikes the Andes, these walls do not shatter or collapse. The stones literally dance in place. They shift slightly, with the violent tremors, absorbing the shock waves. Then, they settle perfectly back into their original, tightly locked positions. This level of structural resilience implies a profound, almost modern understanding of seismology. It requires an ability to calculate and carve complex, multi-angled friction points on a colossal scale. Mainstream historians will confidently tell you this was achieved through trial and error. They claim ancient workers would painstakingly lift a 100-ton boulder into place. They would check the fit, take it back down, and grind away a few millimeters of rock. They supposedly repeated this grueling process thousands of times for a single wall. Does that sound like a plausible reality? The sheer logistics of repeatedly lifting and lowering 100-ton stones just to check a joint are completely absurd. Now consider this terrifying twist. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived and observed this fortress, they were completely awestruck. They documented the incredible structures, but they never found the massive cranes. They never documented the advanced cutting machines, the sophisticated equipment required to execute this flawless, puzzle-like architecture was nowhere to be seen. The Inca themselves claimed they did not build it. They told the Spanish that the fortress was already there when their civilization arrived. The true architects of Sacsayhuaman, much like those at Puma Punku, vanished completely. They left behind their impossible walls and took their miraculous tools with them into the dark abyss of forgotten history. Abydos, Egypt. Look into the Osirion. It sits far below the dynastic temples. Massive granite pillars hold the earth. They are perfectly squared. They are flawlessly smooth. No hieroglyphs exist here. No primitive chisel marks remain. It is just terrifying. Impossible precision. We know. Soft copper violently shatters against hard granite. Physical tests absolutely prove this. The basic math forbids it. Across continents, the exact same fingerprints remain. It stretches from the high Andes to the deep Sahara. This identical, laser-like precision haunts us. It is a lost industrial age completely erased from time. Who were the true, ancient builders, and what cataclysmic event forced them to vanish?